21 gospel legends who tragically died of AIDS. Under the dazzling stage lights and sacred church pulpits, they were hailed as the voices of God. These musical icons possessed soulful voices that could seemingly heal any wound, projecting a perfect golden illusion. Yet, behind this forgiving spotlight lay an earth-shattering secret, a double life forged by the fear of stigma and fame's crushing pressure. In an era where truth was heavily guarded, a silent predator stalked them. They didn't just fade away, they were mercilessly hunted by the century's plague, dying quietly from what society deemed the most shameful disease of the 1980s. The 21 stories you are about to hear will unveil the raw agony of gospel legends you never imagined succumbed to AIDS. Sylvester. Look closely at the shimmering sequins on his extravagant disco outfits. They reflect the dazzling stage lights, masking a terrifying reality. Sylvester was an undeniable powerhouse, a golden illusion of freedom for the LGBTQ+ community, shaking the American disco scene with his unmistakable falsetto. Before the wild nights, he was a gospel angel, wrapped in the forgiving spotlight of his childhood church. But the sudden drop came with an earth-shattering secret. San Francisco's Castro district, a glittering haven of liberation, silently morphed into a hunting ground for an invisible enemy. In those endless parties fueled by hard liquor, illicit drugs, and reckless abandon, he unknowingly contracted the century's plague. The transition from a vibrant icon to a skeletal frame wasting away was brutally fast. Bedridden and gasping for air through a relentless machine, this merciless foe spared no dignity. On December 16, 1988, the music stopped for the 41-year-old legend, leaving his fans in raw agony with unanswered questions. The truth remains coldly undeniable. The very nightlife that crowned him a king also served as his ultimate death sentence. The echoes of those upbeat falsettos barely faded into the chilling hospital silence before a different, seemingly joyful rhythm began to unravel, exposing another pop idol who danced straight into a meticulously hidden trap. Jermaine Stewart. On a bleak day in March 1997, a frail figure stared out of a Chicago hospital window with a pained, lifeless gaze, enduring the raw agony of relentless fevers and a body wasting away on 4 drips. This agonizing scene was the sudden drop for a man whose liver was ravaged by cancer, his immune system entirely obliterated by a silent predator. Rewind a decade, and this same man was the picture-perfect embodiment of the 1980s dance pop wave. Jermaine conquered charts globally with "We Don't Have to Take Our Clothes Off," projecting a joyously clean-cut image deeply rooted in his Ohio church choir days. Yet, behind the dazzling stage lights, he was trapped in a systemic blade of secrecy. Diving into murky relationships and wild nights across luxury hotels in London and Los Angeles, he rubbed shoulders with global pop icons. In an era blinded by cocaine and unprotected encounters, HIV quietly infiltrated his blood. He was not merely tabloid fodder. He was a tragic victim of a glamorous illusion that offered no salvation. Fame is merely a fragile mask, easily crushed when the music fades. Ripping off that disguise exposes an even darker reality, pulling us from a pop stage into the heart of New York, where an R&B virtuoso was slowly being suffocated by the very shadows he sought refuge in. Kenny Green. We stood in the pulsating crowds of Paradise Garage, hypnotized by the golden illusion of 1990s R&B. The bass thumped loudly, blending perfectly with a soaring voice trained in a Maryland church choir since age 5. But looking closely through the hazy smoke of synthetic drugs and hard liquor, the systemic blade hung heavily over him. An entertainment world totally unready for his true self forced him into a dangerous double life. In those dark corners of fleeting, unprotected sexual adventures, a silent predator slipped into his blood. By 2001, the illusion shattered. The man we once wildly cheered for became a skeletal ghost, stripped of over 40 pounds, gasping for air as prolonged pneumonia rapidly turned into severe sepsis. His lungs, which once belted out chart-topping hits, were completely devastated. On October 1st, the club lights permanently dimmed, replaced by the sterile beep of a failing heart monitor at just 32. That agonizing stillness of a lonely hospital room abruptly bleeds into a grimy backstage, where another beloved prodigy traded his holy roots for a fatal rush of adrenaline. Bobby DeBarge. The entertainment machine operates as an invisible punishment, demanding flawless perfection while quietly feeding its stars to the wolves. Bobby was meticulously molded into a golden illusion, serving as the magnetic soul of the R&B group Switch, soaring straight from Detroit gospel choirs to global fame. But under fame's crushing pressure, this gifted artist sought refuge in a chilling escape. Heroin quickly became his master, and dimly lit backstage rooms transformed into dens of unchecked revelry. Syringes were recklessly passed among friends, intertwining with toxic romance and fleeting affairs with both men and women. He was pushed into the systemic blade, contracting a silent predator in the early 1980s when the industry deliberately chose to look away. By the mid-1990s, the illusion shattered completely. His skin was heavily marred by Kaposi sarcoma, his kidneys failed, and he wasted away, bedridden in his mother's Grand Rapids home. Reduced to mere skin over bones, he lay gasping for air to the mechanical hum of a breathing machine. On August 16, 1995, at just 39, he succumbed to the century's plague. True glory often demands a devastating blood sacrifice, tearing apart the artist's soul long before it destroys their flesh. The lingering stench of those fatal backstage indulgences soon drifts across the country, violently choking a beloved queen of the dance floor right in the glittering metropolis that once crowned her. Sharon Redd. She possessed the power to make Studio 54 tremble with a single note, reigning supreme as an explosive voice on America's disco stages. At her dazzling peak, she was a true dance floor icon, trading 15 years of New York church music for the absolute zenith of nightlife glory. Yet, this glamorous illusion was brutally ripped away by a sudden drop. In the late 1970s, she lived fiercely within a whirlwind of champagne, cocaine, and loud music. She embraced fleeting romances with men and women, engaging in unsafe relationships when the century's plague was still an unnamed, invisible enemy. The paradox of her peak was terrifying. The very city that crowned her queen soon watched her wasting away. By 1992, her luxurious apartment transformed into a cold prison. Plummeting to a skeletal 90 pounds, she was admitted to the hospital gasping for air, ravaged by opportunistic pneumonia and severe sepsis. Within hours of a total system collapse, she passed quietly at 46. What is the true worth of dazzling stage lights if they merely illuminate the path to a lonely demise? From the velvet-roped paradise of Midtown, this merciless foe slithered silently uptown into dimly lit basements, patiently waiting to paralyze an intellectual giant of rebellion. Gil Scott-Heron. Barely 110 pounds. That was the final devastating metric of a man who once carried the heavy weight of an entire generation's intellect. On May 27, 2011, the statistics of his descent were coldly recorded in a New York hospital. 0 functioning kidneys, 1 enlarged liver, and countless days of unrelenting fevers. This was the sudden drop of a spoken-word legend, dubbed the father of rap, who began his journey singing pure gospel alongside his grandmother in a Baptist church. By the early 1980s, the numbers shifted to measure a much darker reality. Thousands of nights were spent in the underground jazz clubs of Harlem and Greenwich Village, fueled by an immeasurable consumption of whiskey, cocaine, and heroin. One shared needle among bandmates, one fleeting backstage romance, was all it took for an invisible enemy to breach his defenses. He harbored this silent predator for decades, watching his organs shut down systematically until his body was nothing more than skin over bones. The man who boldly revolutionized music died powerless, leaving behind a horrifying equation. Boundless genius multiplied by unchecked addiction equals an inescapable death sentence. Across the ocean, that same deadly mathematics would soon strike down another rebellious king, trading the concrete of New York for the sweltering heat of a continent that idolized him. Fela Kuti. He was possessed by the psychological ghost of his own invincibility, genuinely believing he was untouchable. Fela viewed himself as a true musical hurricane, an unstoppable force who evolved from singing childhood church hymns to becoming the rebellious genius of Afrobeat. He meticulously crafted a golden illusion of godhood, famously marrying 27 women in a single bizarre ceremony and transforming the Calcutta Republic into a fortress of endless, debauched nights. But inside his mind, stubborn denial was the real merciless foe. He thought he was immune to the century's plague, treating AIDS as a completely foreign concept in 1980s Nigeria. He stubbornly ignored the invisible enemy, allowing it to feast on his hubris amid a haze of palm wine, marijuana, and unchecked, unprotected sex. The sudden drop was terrifying as this psychological rot aggressively manifested in his physical reality. He adamantly refused hospitalization, choosing to wither away in a stifling room that once served as his vibrant creative hub. Raw agony took over as his skeletal body broke out in the dark patches of Kaposi sarcoma. Gasping for air, his heart and lungs eventually gave out on August 2, 1997, stunning the public. His defiant soul had already perished under the heavy weight of his own myth long before his flesh finally surrendered to the virus. This agonizing collapse from a sprawling revolutionary fortress into a single suffocating room of denial mirrors a far more silent imprisonment. Across the globe, another towering monarch of music built a colossal empire of faith, only to willingly lock himself inside a terrifying invisible cage where his most fatal secrets festered in the dark. James Cleveland. It traced back to one devastating choice, choosing absolute silence over the truth. James Cleveland, the undisputed king of gospel, constructed a flawless golden illusion of morality. From singing in Chicago churches at age 4, he elevated sacred music to unprecedented heights. Yet, the systemic blade of the church's fear of stigma forced him to bury an earth-shattering secret. He chose to host clandestine gatherings at his home, intertwining cognac, piano melodies, and young gay singers. In those hidden moments of unprotected intimacy during the late 1970s, the century's plague infiltrated his blood. That single ripple of choosing secrecy became his merciless foe. The sudden drop arrived as he refused treatment to avoid public disgrace. By February 9, 1991, his horrific 65-pound weight loss, ulcerated skin, and severe sepsis were tightly locked behind a Los Angeles hospital door. His organs shut down in raw agony, while his family maintained an airtight lie. A lifetime spent hiding from the world ultimately leaves you completely defenseless when the shadows finally claim you. This suffocating weight of religious expectation did not just crush the king of gospel. It mercilessly buried another legendary church pioneer, compelling a brilliant soul to carry a forbidden identity into the desolate corners of the Southern touring circuit. Wilmer Little Axe Broadnax. On June 1, 1994, a frail 77-year-old figure sat wheelchair-bound in an isolated Philadelphia apartment, his skin and bones covered in severe sores from full-body fungal infections. Gasping for air as his lungs collapsed from prolonged pneumonia, he died utterly alone without a farewell from the community he served his entire life. This raw agony was a devastating contrast to his golden illusion. Wilmer was once a titan in American gospel, his voice driving the golden echoes and lighting up Houston's church stages. Yet, behind the forgiving spotlight, he carried an earth-shattering secret that the systemic blade of religious conservatism forced him to bury. Wilmer was a transgender man. Coping with the heavy pressure of hiding his identity, he relied on alcohol and sought secret, fleeting rendezvous with male partners in rundown hotels during Southern tours in the 1960s and 70s. He unknowingly contracted the century's plague in the early 1980s, trapped in a gospel circle that believed AIDS could never touch them. He bore this silent predator like a curse until his body simply surrendered unnoticed. The ultimate tragedy of a life spent in disguise is that the roaring applause is always meant for a phantom, never the flesh and blood. This profound loneliness of carrying an unspoken truth echoes relentlessly into the glossy world of mainstream R&B, where a velvety-voiced monarch would soon mask his own fatal reality behind a wall of flawless elegance. Luther Vandross. Focus on the flawless velvet lapel of his tailored suits. It was the ultimate fabric of a perfect golden illusion. Luther was a true powerhouse, utilizing a silky voice molded in New York's church choirs to become a global symbol of elegance. Yet, peeling back that velvet reveals the sudden drop hidden inside a sterile room in Edison, New Jersey. The systemic blade of fame's crushing pressure forced him into a closeted existence. He sought refuge in New York's elite gay circles, attending lavish penthouse parties where dim lights masked his fear of exposure. In those fleeting, unprotected encounters, an invisible enemy silently invaded his blood. The raw agony of his final days was violently hidden from the public. Riddled with Kaposi sarcoma, his kidneys failed and his immune system completely collapsed. Once commanding massive stages, he was reduced to a frail shadow, wasting away and only able to nod weakly. On July 1, 2005, the 54-year-old legend passed away. His family desperately tried to hush the cause, but secrecy cannot rewrite the cold fact that a merciless foe orchestrated his end. Had the polished suites of America been a gilded cage of quiet desperation, the sun-baked estates of Johannesburg were an open arena of explosive self-destruction, waiting to swallow a radically different queen. Brenda Fasey. The hospital mirror in Johannesburg hung quietly on the cold wall, forced to witness the ultimate tragedy. It once reflected a true powerhouse, a golden illusion dubbed Africa's Madonna, whose fiery voice and unmatched stage presence dominated the pop scene. Brenda was openly bisexual, actively masking fame's crushing pressure by diving into an endless whirl of wild parties in Cape Town. Her sprawling villa became an epicenter of drugs, liquor, and unchecked romances amid South Africa's severe HIV epidemic. The Mirror watched helplessly as this silent predator took hold in the early 1990s. She kept performing, utilizing the forgiving spotlight to desperately hide an earth-shattering secret. Then came the sudden drop. The glass reflected pure raw agony. Her kidneys stopped entirely, and her swollen, unrecognizable body relied heavily on a ventilator while opportunistic pneumonia systematically ravaged her organs. She actively avoided her own reflection, unable to face a once radiant star wasting away in a deep coma. On May 9, 2004, she died at just 39. The Mirror now stands completely still, forever holding the silent ghost of a queen who danced directly into the flames. Shattered reflections of an African pop icon inevitably crossed the Atlantic, sharply piercing an American soul pioneer whose trademark dark shades could never truly shield his eyes from his own fatal, unchecked indulgences. Ray Charles. 12 children, 10 women, and barely 120 pounds. The cold math of this soul king ultimately balanced out to a devastating 0. Ray was an irreplaceable monument, turning his Florida church gospel into global R&B domination. Yet, the dazzling stage lights masked the systemic blade of his fiercely unchecked lifestyle. Decades in a relentless liquor spiral resulted in countless unprotected flings inside studio backrooms and during international tours. By the late 1970s, a silent predator entered his blood. The sudden drop arrived on June 10, 2004, inside his quiet Beverly Hills mansion. The genius who once brought the world to its knees was reduced to a nearly bald frame, his skin heavily marred by Kaposi's sarcoma. His raw agony ended in a deeply lonely demise. The somber arithmetic of this secluded mansion inevitably yields to the frenzied hotel suites of Tennessee, where rock and roll's most flamboyant architect constructed his own glittering tomb. Little Richard. On May 9, 2020, no dazzling stage lights illuminated a hushed Tennessee home, only the heavy silence surrounding a withered, bedridden body relying on oxygen. He suffered the raw agony of severe pneumonia and systemic fungal infections, entirely consumed by a merciless foe. This devastating end starkly contrasts the golden illusion of rock and roll's wildest icon. Decades earlier, this openly bisexual legend exploded from Georgia churches to shaking a generation, hosting frenzied, vodka-soaked hotel parties where limits didn't exist. The silent predator crept in during mid-1980s European tours, yet he lived as if untouchable until his frame finally gave out. His lonely demise proves even the brightest stars cannot outshine the dark. The suffocating stillness of that final sickbed seamlessly extends its paralyzing grip, aggressively grounding another sensual R&B monarch into a permanent, agonizing reality. Teddy Pendergrass. Examine the cold metal of his wheelchair from his 1982 crash. Teddy was a sensual powerhouse, a golden illusion rising from Philadelphia church hymns to an R&B king adored by millions. Yet, even paralyzed, he completely ignored the warning. Behind closed doors, dim lights heavily masked an earth-shattering secret as unchecked flings and private after-parties continued relentlessly. A silent predator infiltrated his blood in the late 1980s. The sudden drop finally arrived with raw agony on January 13, 2010. Swollen, with inflamed lungs and failed kidneys, he lay paralyzed in Bryn Mawr, signaling only with weak glances. He died an unrecognizable shell, proving defiant spirits cannot outlast viral wrath. The terrifying suffocation of this physically confined icon effortlessly drags us toward another colossal pioneer of romance, who found himself slowly drowning in Hollywood's toxic excess. Barry White. He reached the absolute zenith of music, transforming his Los Angeles church roots into a legendary golden illusion. As a global heartthrob, his iconic deep voice single-handedly defined romance for millions. Yet the paradox of this peak is horrifying. Swept into Hollywood's lavish parties, he drowned in an uncontrolled life of liquor and impulsive, unchecked romances. This reckless pursuit invited an invisible enemy. The sudden drop arrived on July 4, 2003, inside a stark room. His story ended in raw agony. Swollen beyond clothing and exhausted by severe kidney failure, he spent his final days gasping for air amidst relentless fevers. What is the true value of being love's ultimate symbol if chasing it becomes your undeniable death sentence? These velvety, romantic baritones quickly dissolve into the explosive screams of another soul king, who eagerly plunged headfirst into the exact same deadly abyss. Wilson Pickett. I still remember standing in the sweaty crowds, completely mesmerized as this explosive soul icon screamed out hits straight from his Alabama hymn roots. As a devoted fan, his roaring energy felt like a flawless golden illusion that would never fade. But behind the dazzling stage lights, he recklessly plunged into a dangerous cocaine haze and rum-soaked all-night parties. Impulsive one-night stands across Memphis and Europe secretly invited an invisible enemy. Witnessing his sudden drop brought terrifying raw agony. On January 19, 2006, my towering idol was left skeletal, losing over 40 pounds with his skin deeply marred by Kaposi's lesions. Tied to a breathing machine with a completely failed liver, his brilliant spotlight permanently burned out. This deafening silence left by one shattered pioneer echoes directly into the legendary halls of Stax Records, violently unmasking another hypermasculine titan who desperately concealed his own fatal vulnerabilities behind a cinematic swagger. Isaac Hayes, a psychological ghost of unchecked impulsiveness, haunted this monumental soul powerhouse. Isaac was the ultimate symbol of masculinity, crafting a golden illusion that redefined film scores with Shaft. Yet, the invisible enemy fed on the relentless stress of endless Stax studio nights. Soaked in liquor and murky relationships, he fathered 12 children while a silent predator silently infiltrated his blood. The sudden drop was brutally violent. By August 10, 2008, his immune system completely collapsed. Pneumonia dragged this once imposing figure down into raw agony. He became a bald, skeletal stranger with ulcerated skin, wasting away in total isolation. His invincible persona perished long before his physical surrender. The collapse of this impenetrable American fortress naturally casts a devastating shadow across the ocean, reaching an exiled stage where a maternal icon prepared her fateful, final note. Miriam Makeba. On November 9, 2008, immediately after her final show, Mama Africa collapsed backstage, gasping with collapsed lungs. Raw agony ravaged her drained frame, exposing severe sores on her hands and feet. This sudden drop tragically ended a decades-long earth-shattering secret. Behind her powerful anti-apartheid golden illusion, Miriam endured the systemic blade of exile in America and Europe. Seeking comfort, she immersed herself in free-spirited gatherings, wine, five husbands, and unbound affairs. This unchecked passion quietly invited an invisible enemy. She suffered silently for years as the centuries' plague destroyed her from within. Even a voice that shook empires cannot outsing a merciless foe. This heavy burden of a global icon's hidden demise silently shifts to a solitary piano bench, where another beloved prodigy desperately concealed his own fatal reality. Billy Preston. The systemic blade of the music industry ruthlessly demanded conformity. To survive, Billy constructed a flawless golden illusion as the fifth Beatle, ascending from a Houston gospel prodigy to a global phenomenon. Yet, terrified of public disgrace, he lived as a deeply closeted gay man. Crushed by this invisible punishment, he sought refuge in wild 1980s LA parties steeped in cocaine and whiskey. Unsafe, fleeting flings quietly invited a silent predator. He carried this earth-shattering secret, battling HIV for 2 decades in total silence to shield his reputation. The sudden drop culminated in raw agony on June 6, 2006. After months in a coma, his wasted body, riddled with spreading sores and severe sepsis, finally surrendered. The muted, tragic echoes of his iconic organ keys are instantly obliterated by the thunderous brass of a funk titan, whose chaotic backstage reality orchestrated an equally agonizing climax. James Brown. Examine the heavy velvet cape thrown dramatically over his shoulders. It perfectly masked a crumbling golden illusion. The Soul King transformed Georgia choirs into unmatched funk charisma. Yet, beneath the dazzling stage lights brewed an earth-shattering secret. Relentless 1980s tours hit chaotic, gin-fueled afterparties. Driven by exhaustion and addiction, his countless unprotected encounters in the dark quietly invited a silent predator. The sudden drop was devastating. Plunged into raw agony, he withered by 30 pounds, his skin heavily ulcerated as breathing grew painfully labored. The man who electrified millions faded silently in an Atlanta hospital, succumbing to the century's plague on Christmas. This uniquely American silence sweeps instantly toward a vibrant African folk festival, where our final tragedy unwittingly stepped into the crosshairs. Manji. Trace his downfall back to a single reckless night amidst South Africa's vibrant festival scene. Manji was a golden illusion, flawlessly transforming from a humble church choir boy into an absolute pop and traditional powerhouse. Yet, hidden behind the dazzling stage lights was an earth-shattering secret. He fueled endless, booze-soaked parties with unprotected relationships during the peak of the 1990s HIV epidemic. This unchecked freedom quietly invited a silent predator. The sudden drop arrived violently on February 27, 2008. Lying comatose in a Johannesburg hospital, raw agony completely consumed him. Riddled with sores, severe sepsis, and meningitis, his faint breaths eventually faded. The cold forensic truth remains. The very blazing liberty he passionately celebrated ultimately engineered his absolute, irreversible darkness. Behind the dazzling stage lights and roaring applause lies a chilling reality few dare to acknowledge. These 21 gospel legends, once beacons of strength, were ultimately crushed by the systemic blade of society's ignorance. They didn't just succumb to a merciless foe, they were trapped behind invisible walls, terrified of public disgrace and the fear of stigma. Their raw agony and silent demises serve as a devastating wake-up call about the fatal cost of keeping earth-shattering secrets. If these hidden tragedies shattered your golden illusion, drop a comment below. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to uncover more jaw-dropping truths behind music's greatest icons. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.